Welcome back to Cantina Chronicles. I'm Grant.
I'm Ben.
I'm Adam. Oh,
We're out here on the refinery moon of Romira, trying to sell off our stores of coaxium ultra to the highest bidder before Yaya Shram and Jabba's thugs come and try to take it out of our hands. But and that's of course a reference to the Mace Windu comic miniseries that we'll be covering on this episode, as well as the latest arc from Darth Vader. So if you're interested in comic book stories and the Star Wars galaxy, you're in the right place. We'll be covering that stuff later. But before we get there, let's just broad overview news. What's going on with you guys this week? What's any Star Wars stories sort of hit the radar for you guys?
I mean, I got kind of something pretty like data analytical. If you want to start
just
off
like a
right
fireball
there.
screaming through the night sky with data analysis.
I'm sure, but it's interesting. They're starting to release some of the streaming numbers. That's part of what came out of the writer's strike, is a little more transparency about who's watching what on streamers. And Star Wars is doing pretty good on Disney Plus, which is interesting. Like not pretty surprising that Ahsoka did quite well. But what they found is like, like X-Men 97's happening right now, and that's kind of like taking over Instagram and Twitter. Bad Batch is like right there with it. It almost has the exact same number of views as X-Men, so it did quite well.
Are you saying the commercial juggernaut that is Star Wars is doing well?
Yeah, but I feel like there's this kind of like push away or move away towards streaming series and stuff. But what's really interesting about this, I mean, at least to me as a data nerd, is that on the top 10 streaming series, like original series right now, 2 of them are old Star Wars series.
Yeah.
Meaning Mandalorian Season 1 and Mandalorian Season 3 right now are currently some of the top 10 streaming, which is interesting, right? In terms of like what it shows is those have longer legs than even the Marvel series, that people are going back to them or rediscovering them.
On that note, can I drop a saber hot take right now?
Let's go.
Yeah.
For as much bad criticism as Star Wars, series get on Disney Plus, I have found more entertainment value from your most recent Ahsoka and, I will say it, Obi-Wan and Book of Boba Fett, and these shows that sort of do get a lot of harsh criticism online. I have found more entertainment value from those shows than even some of the latest Marvel MCU films.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Marvel's it's a pithy beast, man. But like Star Wars always, like, they need to have that gravity to their, to their moral like things. It's got to be in the fabric, and Marvel's just sort of like, and we persevered and succeeded anyways. I don't know. At least that's my take. I don't want to sell Marvel too short there, but
and there's a lot of downward trending in Marvel. Like I loved Loki season 1. Loki season 2, I felt was sort of missing the mark as far as what I had come to expect from season 1 and sort of how strong that story was. And then I have the latest couple films, Quantumania, Multiverse of Madness, Quantumania. The Marvels, I didn't super enjoy those films. Like I wasn't by them, and yet they were just major releases that were meant to sort of be more posts in the tent. And I have to say, for Ahsoka, there's some things I thought were a bit camp at times, but I have to say, like, I really enjoyed Ahsoka. I've really enjoyed just the craft, the level of craft, the level of thought, the filmmaking that goes into these Star Wars shows, and that's to say we haven't had a film in a long time, and but I have to say just the level of storytelling from Star Wars has always been really, really, really high level.
Yeah, I could not agree more, Grant. And I love Marvel. Like there's so many parts of my personality, but one of them is a comic book nerd, and I love Marvel, and I do enjoy the MCU, and I've watched like those movies so many times over and over again. Multiverse of Madness I've seen 3 times. I still, to this day, if you told me to like summarize that movie, I can't. That movie, like the newest movies, for some reason go through my brain like my brain's a sieve. Like I do not retain them. The series I enjoy, but I feel like I'd never feel a need to revisit them, right? Because this idea, Ben, pithy beast, is one of the best things I've ever heard to describe Marvel. Like, I want that. Like, that's exactly what that is. And pithy, I like. I'm a pithy guy.
Yes.
I love pith. I don't think that's a
It
thing.
is now.
But like, but it's not something you revisit, right? Because it's no depth. It's surface level. And like, Grant, you're right. Like, even something like Book of Boba Fett, my least favorite Star Wars series, I am much more likely to revisit that than even my favorite Marvel series, because there's still depth in that, in that, right? And so those Jonathan just reminded us the hashtag Neon Viking kids.
Yeah,
Just put in our chat. Which, yes, but here's the thing:
the
we're still
modded
talking about that,
cohort.
right?
Yeah, we spent some time on that
Yeah,
last week.
like, we're not talking about much going on, and I don't want this to come off as like a Marvel versus Star Wars thing, but we're talking about two juggernauts, and I think something to keep in mind is Marvel's been around for a long time, but they haven't been around since 1977.
Right, yeah.
Right, in terms of movies and TV. The other thing I wanted to hit on, Grant, which I think you might have said something that's kind of really, not might have, but you just definitely said something that's really interesting, is like, I wonder if this is a little bit of absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Yep.
There hasn't been a movie. There's been a ton of Marvel movies. And so if someone wants their Star Wars
What
fix,
better way?
like, they have to go back to the
I
series.
recently did a Mando like rewatch, and it was awesome. Burned through that series. It was so fun.
Oh, so fun. And yeah, and but I would also just say, like, the way that, Filoni is sort of guiding the creative, storyline in the Mandoverse is just operating at a higher level than a lot of what Marvel is trying to do. Given that in Ahsoka you're getting what the Mortis gods are being teased, you're getting this cosmic side of the story, you're getting fascinating sort of like dark Jedi characters in Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, you're getting sort of Ahsoka's journey to be a master, essentially, and you're bringing back characters that are crossing over from the animation. Like, there's so much going on in that story web that is just audacious, and it's inspiring, and it's just like Marvel could really sort of look at what Filoni's doing there, and almost I would just almost try to do a story that is sort of trying to operate on many different angles, like what Star Wars is doing, given the tone of sort of what you're working on. But then I think they should take a shot on a Tony Gilroy-esque sort of like darker storyline as well. They should branch from the Marvel. I don't know why the MCU has to be this cohesive, singular piece, and it can't have these darker sort of additions there, in terms of tone.
I really thought that we were going to get that with Secret War.
Sure.
And boy, did we not.
They have some villain cards that could really turn the tide, but until they pull like a Doctor Doom, or they, do something major and make a super compelling villain. I know. Yeah, burning Ultron early.
Let's not forget Fantastic Four is coming.
A terrible decision, but
I know. Unlike Avengers 1.5, it was weird. The other thing I want to say too is that I think the other difference, and we've talked about it before on the show, but since we're kind of doing this impromptu comparison, is that has a feeling, if you're not like dialed in like we all are, that if you miss a series, you're out of the loop and you've lost the continuity and you can't figure out what's going on. Like, I feel like it's gotten to the point of like homework to people, right? Where I'm like, to watch, like, to understand,
right? They all connect in a line,
yeah, and like,
they're like, if we scramble the multiverse and create all these incursions, people will just forgive a lot of these sort of missteps in trying to create a compelling timeline. And so they've already sort of, maybe they have in sort of like, a major way sort of lost audience buy-in, whereas Star Wars has only worked to strengthen that and create a grander, more vast universe, a galaxy, and sort of build out characters that make sense and make sure storylines don't oversect. Like, there's not a lot of crossover in terms of like what characters, what themes are explored with what characters. Whereas Marvel, I feel like it's the same theme every time.
It's gotten very repetitive.
These characters and are not too different.
They all talk the same way.
Stand-in Tony Stark. Who can be the pluckiest, pithiest, sort of like Tony Stark.
That's the thing. We have too many Tony Starks. But I was gonna say, like, and I talk about a lot on this podcast, but Carly's always my kind of like the person for like, was a person who would consider themselves a Star Wars fan, like a quote unquote normal Star Wars fan, meaning has watched every movie multiple times, watches the series, is excited for the series, can't wait for the series, live action series, but that's it. Which is like I think 99% of Star Wars fans fall under that radar, is like live action Star Wars fans, right? Unless they have kids who watch the cartoons with them. And the closest she ever came to feeling lost was in the middle of Ahsoka, right? But not to the point where it threw her off, because I think that what that show sneakily did is it got you in, it really in and invested in Ahsoka and Sabine before it said, and here's Ezra. Like, it was like one of those things of just, she's like, well, I'm invested now, I can't pump off now. And then after like an episode, she's like, okay, I get it. Like, I get their relationship, but so it does throw people a little bit, but not to the point of Marvel where it's just like, I don't know what's going on. Who's Thanos? Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Why do I care?
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair to Marvel, the What If show in the animated space, it's spectacular storytelling that I would argue does check all the boxes I'm talking about. And so
there's stuff there.
There's some strong stuff coming from
I
Marvel.
still think Echo was a pretty strong show, a shockingly strong show for a show that I thought was going to be not good at all. And I think part of what that did was completely disconnect itself from the story. It told a standalone story. And it was a little darker. Was it perfect? No, but it was much better than I was expecting, and it makes me look forward to a little more of those street level heroes coming back, maybe in some Marvel.
Can I drop another hot take?
Yeah,
go for it.
Drop it. You got
Vincent D'Onofrio Kingpin it's just not a character that was warranted sort of returning, in my opinion. Just I would have a recast there would have been.
Oh, see, and this is Grant and I were in such agreement for so long, and then boy, are we splitting on this one. I love D'Onofrio as Kingpin, but I get it. I understand.
I love to hear it.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, what Liev Schreiber did with the voice in the Into the Spider-Verse.
I mean, the Into the Spider-Verse.
After that, I was like, well, nothing. You can't really do a Kingpin unless
you come at me with Into the Spider-Verse, and I got no defense to that. Like, come on, you win hands down. All right,
right. It always wins.
That New York.
It is so good.
Oh, so good. And it's like after that, it's just I know that's an animated, rendition of the character.
But that is the best.
Just like
Kingpin.
And Liev Schreiber can kind of do no wrong. I just actually watched what was it? X-Men or Wolverine Origins, and he was right.
He was Sabretooth.
He was Sabretooth, and he was great. But you know what? You mentioned Tony Gilroy. He pivoted.
Yeah.
Yes.
I heard.
So
I
Gilroy,
heard this quote.
I believe last week came out with a blurb where he said, Andor is quite possibly the most important thing he has done and possibly will do in his career. And I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not sure if that's the exact words, but that's basically.
I 100% agree with that statement. I love Tony Gilroy's work. Like I love it, but like obviously it resonates because it's Star Wars. But still, like, I mean, it's like he just gets it, man. He gets it so well. It's just like even I mean, yes, the story about rebellion is amazing, but like I mean, the eyes that are on this and like the film, like context, he's going into like a very hallowed pantheon of a lot of great storytellers making Star Wars stories, and he wants to kick ass, and he's doing it. And he's carved his own little distinct niche, and it's tone perfect and does all the things right. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, anytime someone can tell a compelling story and also have a point of view in a juggernaut of a thing that feels like it's on rails is always impressive to me. Just to bring up Marvel for one more time, like I like that's why I like something like Black Panther, right? Like that's like there's really important storytelling and components in there, and that movie always blows me away for that reason. I'm like, you're in the Marvel machine and you could tell still something really important. So like for Tony Gilroy to be able in Star Wars and tell something that is clearly his point of view, talking about like the importance of rebellion and but also the dirtiness of it, right? That it's not this like simple like, yes, we blow up a Death Star and that's it, of all the cogs in the machine to run it. And to be able to do that in a way that, and I think part of, I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but part of the reason it's the most important is it's probably the thing that will get the most eyeballs on it, that tells, his point of view of something.
He's going to have
always amazing.
He has the widest audience he'll ever have. And I really think with like storytelling, man, it's like anything is possible. Just because we haven't thought of it yet, or have thought of it and we're like, I don't know how that would work. That doesn't mean that someone can't sweep in, use that idea, and make it sing. And it's just like our only limit is our own creativity, and Black Panther's an example of that, and definitely Andor is as well to me.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the definition of sort of universal but specific. The tale of revolutionary. We have real world revolutionaries that many filmmakers have sort of adapted into sort of biopic type material. In that they oftentimes will shy away from details. They will portray a certain character as just broadly heroic, whereas Andor, I feel like because it's a fictional space, Tony Gilroy really gets to stretch again what Adam said, the sort of the dirtiness of it, the sort of the gray of it, and what sacrifices in your own life you need to make to actually be a revolutionary, and and be a sort of rebel against a tyrannical system in a way that feels again universal but extremely specific. And I don't know, I feel like it's the dream of all writers to explore a theme like rebellion or revolution, but and do it in a way that feels like it explores maybe the sacrifice of that, and the constant sacrifice of that, and
one of those things like, but the opening scene of like Rogue One is one of my favorite things, because it's just like this thing where like you're just saying the Rebel Alliance is important, but they're not the Jedi, right? Like they will get their hands dirty, right? Like that's something I think is really interesting way to tell that story.
Yeah, it's something about like his tone. I mean, in the George Clooney movie, I am failing to remember right now the guy's name, but yeah, he's just. I think Tony's just really good at that serious tone.
Oh, Michael Clayton.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
That's like my second favorite thing that Gilroy's done. But
possible.
But like that kind of has that similar like super serious tone, like quiet and slow but serious tone that just like, and that's not a tone, like I mean, I know that's a really broad stroke, but like it's not a tone that we've seen in anything else in Star Wars, and it just like shines that way. But I just love it.
And the parts are like, obviously you have the sunless mind stuff, the speech from Luthen about his sacrifice. Yeah.
That I mean, the
thing.
Plot's amazing. The
what
premise,
if I sacrificed everything? Like that whole thing. You see Cassian on the run as this sort of like physical embodiment of sacrifice, where he is just constantly on the move because he's just being tracked, and he has to live under different names and things like that, and you're just seeing that sacrifice of lifestyle. But like he gets to come around on that theme too, where Marva's like, I love you more than anything you could do wrong, and like coming around, I go, are you kidding me? Like this is Shakespeare. Like this is poetry. Like he not only just show the sacrifice, but then show the characters see the sacrifice, and they, no matter what, see the humanity that's there. And even though you've fallen, or you've taken a sort of hit to your reputation, it's just like I don't know. It's he's really having fun with this stuff, and it's yielding some of the best Star Wars we've ever had.
I can't wait to see season 2.
Agreed.
I can't wait to rewatch season 1. I've now decided that's the next thing I'm going to do, and I'm having trouble not just leaving right now to go watch it.
Right.
I'm that excited.
I do. Yeah. I am somewhat happy that there's such maybe this is the way to say it. The only positive thing about there being such a large gap between season 1 and season 2 is I know for a fact we'll sit down and rewatch season 1.
Oh yeah.
Right before season 2, and I cannot wait to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That'll be even sweeter for me. It's like the longer I can delay it, the better it is in between viewings. But oh goodness, that show.
Yeah.
But we couldn't have Andor without Star Wars, and we couldn't have Star Wars without George Lucas.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention that the maker himself turned 80 this week.
Yeah. Happy birthday to him. How do you think George celebrated? I'm imagining a yacht somewhere.
I'm sure, he had R2 and C-3PO nearby. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I cannot picture George Lucas doing anything.
Yeah.
Like my brain doesn't, like, as a normal human
sat on the
being,
porch and observed.
Like, I don't know. Like,
he's like picking out avocados.
Where is he? Chicago these days? Well, I don't even know where he is.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Wherever he lays his head, that's where he is.
Yeah. It's hard to see him outside of Marin, right? Outside of that area.
I imagine him in the Muir Woods, just sort of like walking.
Yeah, I would hope he's just going on a nice long walk in, Tiburon. He's gonna have eat a meal in Mill Valley and then just retire, to his ranch and have a blissful
made another
day.
experimental film that he's never going to show anyone.
Work on experimental film that he's been, I guess, developing or cutting for who knows how long. But
I'd love to see another film from George.
Yeah. Anyways, happy birthday, George.
Happy birthday.
Proud here for you.
Bright Sons. Well, should we dive on into our two comics here? We have Vader and Mace Windu to pick from. Like, two of the greatest characters in Star Wars. It was a really fun week reading these.
I've got a chance to. Red or blue, guys.
Right,
Red or blue.
Oh,
purple pill or the red pill?
Yeah.
Want to start with Vader?
Let's do Vader since it's is that good? One thing I noticed, this is kind of an aside. So we're covering issues 42 to 45.
Oh, I thought it was 46. That makes 45 makes more sense.
Yeah, 45 is the end of that.
Arc.
Yeah, there you go. And then sorry if I might have texted different. And then 46 to 50 is the next arc. I'm like, Vader's got to end at 50, right? That's got to be the last issue.
I peeked ahead, and it is getting so incredibly epic that I can't even tell you when it's going to end because it just seems to be one-upping itself constantly.
Yeah,
it does. But the last arc is called The Raising of Exegol. The next arc.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I'm like,
that has to be
that's
the most epic.
That's got to be the.
I'm also the titles are so metal.
All of them. It's so good. I mean, the rise of the Schism Imperial is like it's just like sounds like a metal album title.
Yeah, there
right?
was
I was gonna say
the tears of the.
But I
sorry, go ahead.
We'll talk about it. I just feel like at the end of the day, like we're getting so close to Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? Like, doesn't it feel like if we read this in Star Wars, I'm like, come on. Like, it's weird. It's also like, this is the third series, right? Since, it was 2015, 2017. This one has been going on. So the first Vader series ran for 2 years. Second Vader series ran for 3 years. We're now on year 4.5 of this series. Like, I feel like it's weird. Like, and it's not me saying it should end. It's kind of like every time it starts a new arc, I'm like, really? We're going more? We're doing more?
Yeah.
Where are we going?
Yeah, I mean, I have read 46, so I read ahead.
Same, yeah.
And all I can say is it's just there's a lot going on towards the end here, and it's crazy to think that Vader just walks around a hallway and just is quiet and keeps to himself after this.
Right?
Yeah.
Comics.
Okay. So you said it.
He is so out here and just like flexing that I'm just like, how is he not just like show up everywhere with just like, a Schism Imperial like squad and like several Star Destroyers and like, I don't know, like legions and legions of supporters. I just don't understand.
It's odd. Grant, I don't know if we talked about this last week or if it was the week before, but like during the hour off between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi for when we did our marathon, Ben and I were walking around the parking lot and we're like, yeah, to think that. And then we listed off all of the things that happened in the comic arc happened between those. And it kind of broke my brain where I think it may have broken the comics for me a little bit, which I do love the comics, but I was reading this arc, which I like quite a bit, but I'm like, I cannot picture the, was it machine augmented rebellion?
Yeah, I don't want to think of that. That's the darkest thing I've read in a comic. I think maybe.
Like, could you imagine that some of them walking in the background of like Return of the Jedi?
Right.
Like,
you mean like the Dark Droids arc essentially, and like those that whole thing? Because that was
I mean that's another
scale
thing.
of that.
Like all of the things that happen.
Yeah, that's
it's just
ridiculous.
like it makes the second Death Star seem trivial.
Yeah, right next to the.
Who needs a super weapon when you can just
I
guess take over every droid in the galaxy? Like that's insane.
Yeah, that's a really good.
So
point.
my new headcanon is that comics never happened, even though I enjoy reading them and I always read them. My headcanon cannot contain the comics.
I think this is where the real dance to lives, right? Like this, if you want to see the canon sort of balancing on the razor's edge of just staying somewhat true to the original vision, it's like read the comics because it's an absolute dance. It's incredible, like the way that they will weave back into like a smaller scale thing after they maybe do something that dwarfs sort of even the Galactic Civil War. You're like, this just made the Galactic Civil War seem trivial. Like
right,
okay? Like,
But hey, that's why it's
but
fun.
anyways, but shout out to Greg Pak. It's just absolutely crushing in terms of just like
totally.
how metal he's willing to go, like and just the flashback stuff and sort of the echoes and what he's doing with Vader's persona when it's juxtaposed against people questioning order and system and structure and power and what it means to lead this empire and what it means for this empire to truly establish order, right? Like that's
Right.
what I felt sort of echoing about this is
but I mean at its core, just from a real top view, I mean it's a coup, but it's like the people that are supporting Vader against the Emperor.
It's a schism,
a schism, right?
But yeah,
it's a schism.
Yeah, I mean I've never used the word schism colloquially, but
I think coup is just triggering, given
but it's the seeds of it, and that's what's going on. And I don't know. I think that's the most important thing about this comic is that they want to plant the seeds that, like, listen, the Emperor and Vader were at each other's throats leading up to Return of the Jedi. That didn't just that coup, that overthrow didn't come out of nowhere, which they didn't really need to do because we all know like Dark Lords crave power, but it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
It's funny that Vader is so retaliatory against Palpatine in the comics when he does just feel like a sort of servant in the films.
Yeah. Well, I think a big smackdown's coming in the next 5 issues. I think Vader's going to get.
We've been here before in the comics.
His butt handed back
with
to him.
Him stepping to the Emperor and then him sort of
humbled,
being shown ultimate power. And then having read ahead, we do actually. We do go to that same location and do the same thing again with, I'm sure, a different outcome, but probably another SmackDown. Who knows?
Yeah,
I would assume.
Yeah, we're going to Exegol.
And
what is an Exegol? There's let's just, for the audience, we can give this little tidbit, which is there's a giant Kyber crystal.
Giant red Kyber
It's
crystal.
not in the films. You do not see it, and I wonder why. Yeah. Raising Exegol is the title of these final 2 issues here.
Yeah.
I wonder why we don't see that massive Kyber crystal, which I have to assume what was harvested from Ilum or harvested from some massive Kyber source. I don't think it's ever explained where it comes from.
I don't think so. I don't remember if because we saw it before.
He just like sort of shows it to Vader. He's like, "It's awesome, right?" Like that's the conversation.
Look at this.
Yeah, look at this thing. Yeah. And like Vader,
it may or may not be part of a campaign I'm working on. That's coming.
All right. I love it. And I do love that we get more Slymore. We can't get.
Oh yeah, love me some Slymore.
Slymore, just like. I also love that her whole arc in this is like, I'm not lying to anyone. Like, I am telling everyone exactly what I'm doing way up front, but it's my only way to survive. And
she tells them she's doing what she's doing to both. Like, she's like, nope, pure honesty here. This is what's happening.
And I think Palpatine's like, yes, you understand Sith. Like,
yeah.
I'm like,
wait, so Slymore is force sensitive? Confirmed?
Oh, confirmed. Yeah, we knew this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we knew this.
Yeah. Like low level psychic confirm. Not enough.
You
to
get
be,
that
like,
vibe
trained.
in Revenge of the Sith. You get that vibe. You're like, she is quite ominous. And she's Palpatine's like right hand, so it's like, okay, he probably keeps mystics in his inner circle.
I was a little. So this is my second time reading through it because I read them as they come out, and then my favorite thing is when reading this, like I read the 4 issues in a row, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting so much more just reading them in a row than I did, month after month. And part of when I was reading this the first time was like, okay, so now we have another embedded like group that's going to break it. So I'm like, what differentiates the Schism Imperial from Crimson Dawn and from all the other things? And then when I read it, Slymore does a really good job of saying like, these people are not powerful. Like none of the people I have gathered have any force abilities, are not high ranking. They're just cogs in the machine. But you know what? One cog not working the way it's supposed to work can gum up the entire works. And I thought that was a really elegant way to tell a similar story in a different way, right? And it made me understand this a little more of like, oh yeah, all of these little people, like just the idea of like basically like a big plot point in this little section revolves around a parking ticket.
That's so funny.
I'm like, yeah, I loved it. I'm like, that's great.
Should we talk about who's in the Schism?
Sure.
Yeah. Roll call.
All right. So we have Admiral Korlek.
Yep.
Agent Fabrian.
Fabrian. Yep.
Yes. And then Governor Tantaza.
Yep,
Governor Tantaza.
And these are characters that have appeared in previous arcs in the comics. We probably won't go into those arcs in particular, but these are all some of these are returning Imperial characters that we have.
Yeah, and we have
in previous arcs covered. You can go into our backlog. I'm sure you'll find entire sort of summaries of those arcs, and then
all people who have been
and Sly Moore, obviously,
and Sly Moore, who kind of gathers them together, because these are all people who basically this is one of the favorite things. Like, I'm not gonna they all blame Vader for their fate, and we first meet them, or not first meet them, but we meet them again, all three of them plus a fourth person being processed. Is that the person?
Oh, you guys are forgetting the funnest one, man.
Well, who are you
Lieutenant
talking about?
Pride?
Well, we're not there
okay.
yet. Yeah, I am not. Trust me, I'm not forgetting Pride.
Okay, we're going through this. Okay.
We're gonna talk. We're gonna talk a lot.
You've heard this
Pride,
name.
I want to talk about these
audience. This is the Richard E. Grant character.
Yeah, which I love. I love that they're giving him backstory. Yeah. We saw him in From a Certain Point of View.
Yeah,
that's right.
He was on Endor smoking death. He was on Endor smoking death sticks.
Yes.
Yeah. Fleshing him out is awesome, because I feel like he just pops up out of nowhere in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which is wild that Ben last week was like, you know what, guys, Rise of Skywalker good. And I'm just like,
I gotta agree.
The Rise of Skywalker was good for you.
It was a blast. It was a blast.
Richard E. Grant doesn't make that movie worse. I'll put it that way.
Rise of Skywalker is good.
Yeah. No, I'm in. Every movie has a clunker line like that you're just like, oh man. But no, I love the heck out of it, man. I love the heck out of it. It was, part of it was watching all 9 in a row to get there. So it was like a very celebratory. You were like,
easiest job.
Let's go.
Which was just make Kylo a ruthless, evil dictator and just disallow the redemption and just be weird. Like that movie had the easiest job in the world to be a masterpiece.
Yes, that would have been great. There's no way that was going to happen.
This was we got a very Disney ending, and I really have no notes.
Star Wars is a redemption story, even when it shouldn't be.
Well, the point is we've been here, and it's but again, maybe do something that is unique and allows the Kylo character to end on even footing rather than just being purely dark. But
I'm also it still blows me away that they actually the thing that I think was most shocking about the end of Rise of Skywalker is that they actually killed Kylo Ren, because like everyone loved him and loved that person. Like I like you're
actually Ben Solo killed Kylo Ren
about
and Ben Solo.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Ben Solo died. You're right. I'm sorry, and Anakin Skywalker died too. But my thought was like your thought of like exiling him on Ahch-To, right?
This was sort of first of all, I hate to toot my own horn here, but I feel like
I started tooting it. So you can continue.
I told you guys this like 2016, 2017. Ben was aware of this. I was like, this is what happens is you leave Kylo on Ahch-To, you maroon him there.
Yes.
And then he makes a fire one night, and then the smoke billows from the fire, and you essentially get the Han Solo moment from Rise of Skywalker, and then the Millennium Falcon sort of thrusters push away the smoke, and it lands to pick him up, and he's had all of that time to basically, and you do a huge time jump essentially where he has been stuck there for upwards of a couple of years and had to reflect on all this stuff that he's done. And so the redemption just feels like it has all this time to bolster that feeling of redemption where it's like, yes, this makes sense.
And he's
honoring
doing
on a dime. Like I would almost argue that his on just an immediate sort of heel turn redemption, much like Anakin's fall. It almost felt like an echo of just how heel turning that was.
Yeah.
It's just, after seeing the Crosshair arc and Bad Batch, it's like you really need to spread the time out in those learnings. Those learnings need time.
Yeah.
And
agreed.
All I have to say is what Filoni did with Crosshair, the character Crosshair in Bad Batch is I think the new model of redemption.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think a couple of things with that is like I think yes, I love that idea of like him like sequestering himself or being exiled on Ahch-To and
or marooned, right?
Like, marooned or whatever. Like
exploded. You're not leaving,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But I think it also honors his uncle right? Like it does this weird thing of also honoring Luke, right? This idea of like I have taken Luke's place on Octu, right? Like this idea of like I killed him, I led to his death. It's now my responsibility to take over, like guarding this Jedi temple or whatever. But like yes, but my point from the beginning was this like it's shocking to me that Disney didn't do that because in some ways that lets you keep a beloved actor and character there to bring back in a future thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you think that would be like, if you're trying to build this out into multiple arcs and multiple series, like, I'm still shocked that they're like, no, we're going to kill this person off that is like the best actor in the whole thing and everyone loves.
Yeah.
True. Anyways.
Yeah.
I agree. And I also heard Pablo Hidalgo, esteemed sort of, a story group, veteran and just a wonderful, wonderful, brilliant mind who has sort of guided many of the projects at Lucasfilm. I heard he thought the same thing. He thought that would also be an interesting story direction. Is that one. Kylo gets sequestered on Octu, and I was amazed by that comment because I don't think he rarely I think shares his opinion of sort of story.
No.
Ideas as far as what's going on creatively. I'm sure he does with the actual creators, but not publicly, obviously. And I heard he thought a similar sort of direction would have been interesting for Kylo.
Yeah.
And with Octu Octu feels like a character. It feels like an important location that I think could have served multiple purposes rather than just Luke's character.
Yeah. Here's the other thing, and Ben's like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna try so hard to get us back on track." But here's the other thing that pops in my head: just like we've had so many characters put themselves in exile for failing to be good enough. Do you know what I'm saying? Like Yoda puts himself in exile, Obi-Wan puts himself in exile, Luke puts himself in exile. They're all good people, and they all are light side characters when they do that. But to have a dark side character put himself in exile to try to get better is interesting and different, right? It's like, oh, this is actually the first character in Star Wars that probably should
spend some time.
Like it shows you the power.
Become a monk,
like
take a vow of silence and whatever, right? Like that would be interesting to get like back in touch with the Force, right? Anyway, yeah.
No, right there with you again. I love the ride. I love Star Wars. I love
yeah, of course.
I really do think The Last
Jedi
is the best of the movies, even though I have so many quarrels with sort of maybe what was emphasized as important in that movie versus sort of what maybe should have been subject to exploration given what we know about Legends material and Palpatine and his contingency plan and things like that. But and Darth Vader as a character, Darth Vader felt like the main character of the first 6 films. It's sort of insane to leave Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader out of the 3 films when we have Filoni now resurrecting him in a major way to do very important character work with Ahsoka. I just
Which is
have
to
to
of
think
wild.
that there's a few things I truly hoped for from the sequel trilogy, and other than that, I love the films, but Rise of Skywalker it just felt like a lot at once, and I wish that was spread out, or I wish there was a shared sort of creative conceit when it came to a lot of those story beats, and then when they're all just foisted on you. Unleashed on you in such rapid succession, it just feels cheap.
Dude, after 36 hours without sleep, you want that rapid succession. I needed that rapid succession. That's what kept me going. Those cuts just kept me moving, dude.
I will say it was I agree with Ben on that. It's kind of perfect. And the thing is, like, I'm a big believer of like 2 things can be true, right? Where I'm like, I do really, really like The Rise of Skywalker. Are there other things I think would have been interesting? Of course, right?
Come on, there's infinite possibilities that could have been done for that movie.
Yeah.
You know?
And the other part I was gonna say is with Grant is just like, that story can still be told, right? Like that's the nice thing about Star Wars is it may not be Ben Solo's or Kylo Ren's story, but it could be someone else's story, right? You can still do that within a dark side or at some point. And I just feel like, I agree. Like I think Rise of Skywalker kind of did what it needed to do. And I don't know. I don't
you guys just brought something up that made me think. So like Anakin Skywalker resurrects himself to fish his old Padawan out of the ocean, but just skipped his 2 children saving the galaxy.
Yeah,
you know,
right?
Like they're at the end of their lives, just saving the galaxy again is just sort of takes that. I mean, I guess that comes later, so this is setting it up, right? This happens after the Mandalorian, so
it's true, but it's odd, right? It totally is weird. But the other thing I was thinking about, it keeps coming to my brain and then keeps immediately falling out.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on with my brain. It's the end of the semester.
Yeah.
I've turned in my final grades. My brain is mush this week because of that. I read so many 20-page papers.
Oh man,
so many bad 20-page papers.
Stay in school, kids. Study hard.
Yeah. Your professors don't judge you when they're reading their papers. We swear.
Yeah. And lies.
As Adam wipes his eyes.
Yeah. His 1,000-yard stare.
And winces in severe pain.
So back to Vader.
All right, back to the comics.
Yeah.
Wait, yes, Vader. Thank you. It's here. It finally came back in my head. Yes. So sorry to build on what Grant said. This idea that, like, yes, they didn't want to deal with Vader. Like, we get like a 2-second voice clip from Vader in Rise of Skywalker, which is like weird because I don't know why you don't go to the Vader well. But then to show how comfortable you are using that character in the series, like post Rise of Skywalker, like how many times has Vader now shown up in live action since Rise of Skywalker, right? Yeah. All over Obi-Wan
and to do almost
like,
redundant.
Come on. Yeah.
I would almost argue to do redundant character work that he's already done. Whereas, I think what he is doing with Ahsoka was almost what I wanted from the sequel trilogy, which is this sort of like, here is what Vader looks like as a Jedi Master, sort of offering his commentary to a Jedi, or offering his commentary or tutelage to a coming of age character like Rey or Kylo. You know, like that's, and then maybe massive reveals with that as well. Like, honestly, I just feel like the idea of like the chosen ones, you have the Emperor returning as a sort of, being cloned, right? And working on his revival. What if there's, this counter narrative of like another sort of genetic project going on that's trying to, revive the chosen one? It's like, or a mystical property in which it's like a repeat prophecy of the chosen one, where the midi-chlorians all do spring to life in one being, and it's sort of like this, what is the inverted sort of like chosen one tale where they don't get discovered, or what like there's so much you could do there that's just like sitting there, and it just felt insane to me that the sequel trilogy was like, no, let's not even deal with that. It just felt
You're playing
insane.
The hits tonight,
like
Grant. These are my favorite Grant theories ever. I'm glad you're bringing them up
agreed.
again. Yeah. I love that, man. Yeah, I mean, you talk about reincarnation, all that. I
definitely tried to avoid sort of my own insane sort of Charlie Day Reddit theories, where I was just like, you know what? I'd love to go there. You already borrowed this much from Buddhism. Why not just complete the journey here and sort of give complete homage to the sort of spiritual practices of the thing that you are taking a lot from in the first place, Bushido and Shinto Buddhism and Buddhism, and sort of like really going that extra mile to do something truly mystic and spectacular in what you said, reincarnation. But I'm not going to reiterate or litigate.
But hey, and I said this before, you stepped away, but there's always hope, right? Like these stories can still be told in the Star Wars
and like
galaxy,
the Michael R. Lucas script with the floating hand. I was like, this is the most compelling thing I've heard ever, and it's almost vastly more compelling than a lot of what we received as sort of what the inner discoveries of these mystery boxes that were set up. I feel like were rug pulled away from us every which way you looked. And
have you watched the J.J. Abrams thing?
If you have mystery box J.J. Abrams, then you have subversion artist Ryan Johnson back to back. I'm like, you're basically you're stabbing yourself with the saber in the foot, like by doing that, because you have to choose. Like, I play a lot of Star Wars Unlimited, and it's like I try to choose, like, think about the meta of my deck, and I'm like, once I start developing too many strategies with the deck, it's not a good deck.
Yeah,
you need to really look at a singular a multi,
very focused.
dynamic strategy that works essentially. And once you start spreading yourself thin in terms of the strategic angle in your story, it's lights out.
Can I bring in? Ben's just gonna stop the stream. He's just gonna shut it down.
I love this. We haven't gone off the rails this hard in a while.
I want to bring in Dune for a second, and not Kurt Dune, but like here's the thing. So like Frank Herbert died before the last Dune book was published, right? Like, and so his son finished it. His son, along with Kevin J. Anderson of Star Wars, he wrote Star Wars books as well, Fame. Finished the series. But here's the thing. When he took over that thing, which it was like decades before he was finally like, okay, we're going to continue the Dune story. He didn't say, okay, great, we're going to jump in and finish the Dune story. No, he went back in time and told 3 prequel stories, and then went further back in time, which is where I'm at now, and told like thousands of years. Because I think what he was doing was priming himself to write in this universe before he tackled the big thing to end it. Which I haven't read the big thing, so maybe it stinks and sucks. I don't know. You can tell me, I haven't read it. But like I appreciate that idea of like, let me tackle something that has less weight towards it to kind of like build those muscles out. And part of me wishes that Disney was just like, yeah, we're going to do The Mandalorian. We're going to do like Rogue One and Solo and sell some of these other stories. And then give us like 5-10 years, and then we'll tackle finishing up the Skywalker saga. I don't think they realistically could because the original trilogy actors were getting up there and because of us. But like part of me is just like if they had that and it didn't feel like, part of me felt like they bought Lucasfilm and then was immediately like, oh crap, we have to finish this thing. We have to tell episodes, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And they just didn't have the infrastructure behind them to do it. I don't want to say right, but to do it justice, even though again,
all Monday morning quarterbacking. I just want to throw in there, like, yes, these things seem clear to us now, or this is how we feel now, but like, it's, when you're Disney looking down them, I just wanted to throw that disclaimer in here because I know that's how you bought.
No, it's 100%. It's like wishes and buts, and I want to mention Travis on the said a couple things that I thought are interesting on the chat. First is he was not a fan of Rise of Skywalker, but he saw some people like reacting positively online. So my favorite line is he said, "I don't like it, but I accept it as part of the saga." That's all right. I love that. Like, that's kind of like, there's certain things in Star Wars or other properties where I'm like, I don't particularly like it, but I'm like, I accept that it's part of the saga, whatever. The other thing is he thought I was going to make a Duncan Idaho comparison since he died and was a fan favorite and then was resurrected. So like I feel like, yes, the Duncan Idaho is a good parallel to Star Wars. Yeah, resurrecting the fan favorite.
I would have
characters.
taken a shallow Duncan Idaho ripoff story in the sequel trilogy any day of the week.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, and it is. I have to say I differ from Travis, where some of the Rise of Skywalker and the sequel trilogy to me, it is tough for me to accept that into the sort of George saga, and I hate to be like, I only like the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, but it just feels like the sequel trilogy, like we just discussed, it did feel like they rushed into it. And it just feels like there could have been a lot more to chew on there, especially with a character like Darth Vader, who's been in the films for the first 6 films in such a major way. For him to not be there is just, it's kind of upsetting. But
I mean, they're like,
but to give Disney credit, I think what you said, Adam, was so important. The legacy characters, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, they're getting up in age, and I mean, the performance you get from Hamill in 8 is astoundingly good.
So good. Same with
Harrison and Carrie.
Same with Harrison Ford.
Carrie is amazing.
Like 20, and Carrie's amazing. So good in episode 8. But I feel like Harrison Ford. I feel like
so good.
He's so good, and I feel like Ford sleptwalk his way through the first part of the 21st century to the point where I'm just like, I grew up with Harrison Ford as an actor, and I'm like, I just haven't watched anything. And then he came alive again when he was in Star Wars. As much as he says he hates those movies, like,
killed it.
He did that, and it gave him like Blade Runner, and it gave him like, you say what you want to say about the last Indiana Jones movies, but what I'll say is his performance as Indiana Jones felt more like Indiana Jones in that movie than it did in Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Like, it felt more like Indiana Jones to me. So like, I felt like just to see that, like, I will always be thankful that it gave me back Harrison Ford, as an actor.
There's still great Indiana Jones movies to be made too. That's what's
Oh yeah.
That just it just has me sort of melancholy about it all because I really wish we could get Harrison for another like 3 Indiana Jones movies. I feel like there's just so much that character can explore and do, especially in this time where we really need, punch a Nazi, and we really need to just see what moral, good looks like in a sort of academic character that is, global in nature and persona, and it's such an important character that I almost want more from those films. So,
agreed.
Yeah, I just think the performances you get in the sequel trilogy are special.
So good.
And I think Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and everyone who pushed those movies into existence just deserve a lot of praise and a lot of credit for getting those performances on screen when they did. And and obviously JJ and Ryan for directing and just absolutely knocking it out of the park with those.
You hire good filmmakers, they make good movies, and that sounds like trite, but like was their theory. They're like, we'll just get the best actors we can find, and they've seen a lot of talent over the years, and those are the people they chose. And then and the acting was amazing, and everything was really good. Like the script writing does jump noticeably watching the original trilogy and then going to the sequel trilogy. You're like, oh, okay. Like at least the conversations they have, there's a couple of like funky, like weird moments, but like, the acting and the dialogue's pretty great.
It's tough to compare those, right? Because one begins a lot of these ideas and the other ones are postmodern deconstructions.
Have like 40 years of film history. But like, and Ben, like one of the things that stuck with me that you said kind of walking out of those films was just like, yeah, I mean, they got really, really good actors to do those roles where it's just like, I mean, nothing against Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher when they were like babies, but they were babies in those original movies and they did such a good job, but like they kind of shows that they're a little like wet behind the ears. And then you go to someone like a Daisy Ridley and a
John Boyega
and Adam Driver and Oscar Isaac, and they're like.
But I would argue that the naivete of Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill in the original trilogy films feels very authentic. It feels like they were quite rebellious with George and snickering about the dialogue throughout the filmmaking process, and I feel like they really did feel like young kids in an authentic way in the original trilogy, whereas it feels very engineered in the sequel trilogy. Hey, this is quippy. Hey, this is funny. They should do this. This is a fun antics. This is a great bit. If to me it didn't feel like there was the rebelliousness and the sort of the energy that I think was authentically sort of displayed by those.
I guess
it's mainly because they had only each other to get through this weird, clunky sci-fi script, and it's like you didn't have a master director and just one of the kindest people in the world like J.J. Abrams to sort of incite this sequel trilogy and family and treat everyone with the utmost respect. Obviously, respect is important on every set, and I'm sure George was deeply respectful. But they oftentimes did make fun of the script, and they oftentimes did sort of like think George was a little, into his own dialogue that just felt incredibly unrealistic, and they felt like it maybe had to be their own little unit outside of all that, and to me that brought a real authentic sort of flavor to the coming of age sort of aspect of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Should we talk more about Darth Vader the comic? Sorry, Grant. No, I love all this, buddy. I'm just someone's got to do this. We got to shoehorn ourselves back in. Hey, they go to Tython. Anyone psyched about Tython?
Yeah,
that was actually my favorite part of this arc.
Yeah, we're going back to Tython. Well, we were here in Afra too. There's the previous issue of Afra where Vader was actually stuck in that sort of
mind prison.
Was it Well of Souls?
It's a confessional, and actually, I will.
It's a confession.
I will give a million credits to the person that can come up to the name of this issue because it is the most metal name for an issue ever. Adam, I know you have it right there. It's called like the Tear Dream something of the. It's got like.
Is it like the Tears of Kyberite or something? I don't know.
Something like it's like the cave of Kyberite tears or something. No, not Kyberite. That's a different. That happens later. But he,
Is it the first
It
one?
must be the first one, I think. 42.
Oh, the martyrium of frozen
yes,
tears.
the martyrium
Oh
of
yeah, the
frozen tears.
mortarium. And they're like, you're gonna go into the mortarium. What, Pride, or I don't know who? No, not Pride.
It was Pride.
Kolek?
Yeah, no, Pride's like,
yeah, Pride.
Yeah, you're gonna go in and
After he professes that he will gladly die for Vader, and Vader's like, "Good, get in that martyrium of frozen tears." Only to be like, "The martyrium of frozen tears." I love that name. But no, we've been here before, and Afra, used this to trap Vader, which is the only time I've ever, or very few times, that Vader gets owned. But Afra got him good there. But then just Tython in general, we've seen Grogu on Tython. It's like the most central planet in the core. It is the core of the core, and it was the previous homeworld, or the base camp for the Jedi, allegedly, right?
Yeah,
the first temple.
One of the early Jedi homeworlds.
Perhaps we'll see it again at some point in the near future in film. Maybe.
Yeah.
So it's basically Southern California in The Mandalorian, but it's Arctic here, essentially.
Yeah, it's a big planet.
It's a whole planet, right? So
it's a big planet.
It's got its frozen poles. Yeah.
There's points of interest on the planet. Like nice cast or something.
Yeah.
Poles.
So to be fair to Grant, pretty much every Star Wars has demonstrated that every planet has one single biome.
Right. Yeah. Usually, but no.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's like when there's
also took that from Dune.
Climates, it does raise questions, but no, it's very cool that this is a frozen environment when they're there. And Tython, such a cool planet. Obviously, the Old Republic, Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO. It's a starting world for the Jedi character there. Yeah. It's very cool.
Yeah, stoked to see that place. And I mean, the Schism is wild. It's like this ragtag. And then, of course, there's the most disturbing part of the story, and also part of the Schism, is like we're introduced. What are they called? The like Ram X or something? Or they have like a funny code name for these like augmented rebellion soldiers that are like half droid.
Oh, the cyborgs?
Yeah, the cyborgs.
The MAR.
The MAR, right?
Yeah, it's the machine augmented rebels.
Yeah.
Any hoozle, the MAR. So they're cool. Yeah. Someone's got like shoulder blasters. One's pretty much just a droid. But he uses that tech from the Dark Droid series to take over the cybernetic parts of their body.
Yes.
And just leaves their mind frozen in a void without being able to actually do anything about any of their actions they're taking. And it's so disturbing. Yes. And Slimore hears their screams of anguish, like randomly, and like collapses in pain. Yes. And that's like, and Vader. It sounds like the Beach Boys to the Vader.
Like Slimore's Force sense.
Right.
It's
one of my favorite things, to the point where she collapses and it explains it, and then someone's like, "Well, Vader's Force sensitive too, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, it must be so much worse." And they cut to him just like, like you said, just like chilling out to the sounds of screams.
Yeah.
So just like, yep.
Yeah, he just hears the Beach Boys. It's just pet sounds in his ears, mostly. That's fine. The screams of my enemies. Yeah.
I love when they do go into the moratorium. Like, I just love that whole part.
Oh, actually, yes.
Yeah. Then,
no, that was the best part of the series.
Vader sort of walking ahead and the Luke stuff. Oh, my God. Like, it's so cool. And, like, Luke did go there when the Rebels had a base, essentially. Yes. Right, so the Rebels had a base there, and Luke did sort of go to that altar,
his confession was that sometimes I think about joining my
what
father.
If I said yes?
What if I said yes?
Yeah. Or when he said, like, join me and together we can rule the galaxy. Like, what if I said yes, essentially?
Yes, which was
that was his confession.
It's super cool, which makes sense that Luke thought that, right? Like, I totally buy that Luke would have thought that, right? That's a clear thought. And, like, it's interesting. It does a good job of explaining why Vader, even coming back into Return, is so confident that he can turn Luke, right? Like, he's seen Luke's inner doubt. It also is like and they show it in there, but it's like an interesting turn on Luke's vision in the cave, right? Like, Vader almost gets his version of the cave in a weird way.
He gets Luke's vision of the cave.
Beautiful symmetry.
So what was your interpretation of that? So Vader is watching all this, which is the coolest.
It's really unclear. Yeah.
But then he gets the vision that Luke gets in the cave. So it's the Vader helmet cracked open, and you see Mark Hamill's face, Luke Skywalker's face.
Yeah.
What was your?
Because you are a choice away from becoming your worst self,
Yeah.
essentially. Throughout your life, you're going to come across these choices, and it's just for Luke, that was the choice.
Right.
That was
How
it.
do you think
If I
Vader's
make this
thinking
choice,
about that vision? Like,
I'm the guy.
I think this is what part of what turns Vader to good in the end is he sees this. He doesn't want this for his son, right? He's worried that his son's going to follow in his footsteps because it's Luke ... right? And he's looking up. It's not like Luke. It's Luke. Like, just I think he has this idea. Yeah.
And Luke does try to kill the Emperor like immediately. And
I know. Yeah.
yeah,
like it is a slippery slope. Like for Luke especially, just with all the trauma, right? Like there's so much trauma in him by Return of the Jedi that it's like he gets overly aggressive, and it's not the way of a Jedi. And he's so close to being the guy in the mask at all times, especially, with his hand, and now he looks at it and thinks he's just slowly becoming Vader, his father. To me, that's just the ultimate symbol of that choice. And so that's why it's important for Vader to see that, or that panel to be there.
yeah.
Like it has to be there. Like the artist is like, well, I'm going to draw this because it's basically it's the theme of what you're going for here. It's,
right.
It's the mask exploding, and it's Luke in the mask.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
It is.
I have a feeling the Acolyte might deal in this heavily.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I
Love
like
it.
The mask and sort of what's in there.
Yeah.
And choice. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be super fun. Oh, you had a Acolyte hot take you were teasing before the pod.
No, I know.
You think you figured it out. You know what it's going to be.
I was like, oh, okay. Like there's a little few more cards shown, and I don't want to get into it. We're so close to the show. Like I honestly just want to go media blackout at this point, because we're going to talk about it. We'll talk about the 2-episode premiere. We'll talk about, we'll probably get to the season finale and have a lot to talk about. And so let's leave it on the table.
I'm kind of sort of similar. I'm like, can you please show us no more? Like, you've shown us enough. Yeah. This is the exact amount I want to see.
The most recent TV spot. That's all I'll say.
I haven't seen it yet, so that's easy. Yeah. It's easy to do.
I will continue not doing that.
Right. All right. Well, the comics are there. They're getting Vader for power. They did a callback to that old planet eating machine. Got some power cubes that way.
Oh yeah.
And then I kind of forget how it ends up. It's like amassing power. This is the team. This is the schism. Parking ticket. They grabbed that some weapons from that guy or something, from the guy with the parking tickets.
Yeah, I don't remember. All I know is at the end of the day, Emperor's like basically like, you got to get Luke, but you got to go and end run around to get him. Basically, you can't go directly at him, right? And so then we get to free comic book day territory, but that actually ties more into the next series.
Yeah, and I actually
and they want to strike at the heart of they want to strike at the heart of the Emperor, right? And and so they're going to do that now. Yeah.
Right. Their compliment. Do they have a droid army? No, it's.
Oh, yes, they do. That's what he has. That guy is creating a new droid army.
Yes, it's a new droid army. Yeah.
So now that Vader has the ability to kind of like take over droids, he's basically just doing Phantom Menace again.
Yeah, but he mind controls all the droids, which is fun. And he's on the droid side.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
I love that. I stand firmly behind that. And then we're off to Exegol, which, we'll get into in a couple of months.
Maybe after Acolyte coverage or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, we're like 5 weeks.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
No, 5 months. No, 5 months.
Yeah,
I was doing my math really wrong.
But yeah, it's always a good.
We'll see you in the fall.
See after the summer, which is wild. But I don't know. These arcs are super fun.
Yeah.
So
should we bore into the Mace Windu?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So we got young Mace Windu here. Younger, just like Jedi Knight doing his thing.
Yeah.
And we learn
free prequels. Yeah. It's very Mace Windu. Yeah.
Yeah. Not post prequels with one arm Mace Windu, though.
No, not yet.
Yeah,
Still waiting on that.
Well, I mean, there is a case that
I just want that show to be an acid trip.
I don't want it, but I don't. It makes no sense to do that. He would be around after the prequels, given that there's supposed to be some weight with him as a character, and that was the importance of that character, is that he's again part of a major choice. Yeah, this was such a fun 4-part miniseries on Mace Windu, sort of being sent to recover Coaxium Ultra, which is essentially the NOS of the Star Wars galaxy, which Mark Bernardin, the writer, essentially got to invent, which is so cool.
Yep.
We also homeworld for Mace Windu, a name drop, Harun Call. And Mark Bernardin does a beautiful job sort of world building that world throughout these issues, because Azita Cruz, the other character in the run, is also from Harun Call.
Yeah. What are the odds?
And there's like the Pika Bay City. There's like Haruni Lake. Like there's fun locations explored and sort of just dropped almost Tolkien-esque, sort of just woven into the story. And it's really, really fun. Sort of like we now have a sense of place of where Mace came from and just more to his character that I'm so grateful for, because I feel like Mace Windu is just underexplored, criminally underexplored. And again, Disney Plus, if they do a Disney Plus prequel series on a Jedi, I have to think
the one.
Mace Windu is one. He's number one on the list, essentially. If you want to see like Jedi training and what the sort of academy was like, the temple was like before the fall. I feel like it's number one on that list. It's like you want to see him as a Padawan, training, trials, all that stuff with him, because he's so cool.
Yeah, here's hoping that the Acolyte does well, because it's our first show with like a lot of Jedi, right? And so if that does well, they'll be like, yes, give us a single Jedi story. Okay, this is all great. All right, we've talked enough. Can we talk about Yaya Shram? Are we good? Are we at the point we can talk about Yaya Shram? I've been waiting for like an hour and a half to talk about Yaya Shram.
We can.
You have not seen the end of Yaya Shram. That was the best panel I've seen in comics all year.
Yes, it was amazing.
Like just him ejecting out of that ship. And then first of all, it's before that, Mace Windu's like, you're a scary little dangerous little guy. Like
dangerous little guy.
And then he ejects. And I was like, this might be the best back-to-back panels I've seen in comics.
It's so good. I think in that same, or a couple like pages before, it might even be the same page, but like he jumps on, so Mace Windu jumps onto Yaya Shram's Y-wing, and they cut to the reaction shot when he first sees Yaya Shram is amazing.
Yeah, he's like, what is this?
Yaya Shram for the listener is Zelen, like Babu Frick, but essentially just like a dastardly sort of like criminal bounty hunter. Which I was like, well, that's the most genius thing ever. Basically subvert that whole thing, invert it, essentially make it a dark, scary character. But he just looks like
still adorable, which is what they're going for.
He's like been, on a bender for like weeks.
And he talks so much trash, just like elite level trash the whole time he's fighting. He's handing it out. Yeah, so it was like him in the cockpit of his ship, and then he had like a dozen more fighters that were like on remotes or something that he was controlling or something like that.
I just took it that Mace Windu just leapfrogged from each,
just blowing up
one after another.
But they blew up under him.
They're remote trips.
I think they were remote trips. The only sentient thing was, and he was like trying to find the pilot, and then he finds him, and it's an Anzellan, which is great.
Yeah, so like again, all the credit to Mark Bernardin, like to introduce. This is a 4-issue miniseries, which I was shocked by, because it flies through and he tells a complete story in 4 issues. But to also introduce in my opinion, two really good antagonists, or really interesting antagonists that I want to see again, which is Yaya Shram, and I do like the Shroud. Right?
I love the Shroud.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Shroud.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And like, we got to get into the Duskweavers of that.
We'll talk about Shroud, who, spoiler alert, survives at the end very much like a Michael Myers character at the very end.
I never like it when like a hand busts out of rubble, but like
I'm okay with it just because I want more of this character. Like I didn't that's the only reason, but I agree. Like it's very schlocky, but like but like 100%. But like to like the fact that I'm like, okay, I need more Yaya Shram in the Shroud in my life. Like like the fact that we have this now and these are things that they go back to is like, please do not let it be years before we see these characters
we were
again.
promised. We have not heard the last from Yaya Shram.
Yes.
So I'm taking the author at his word.
Wait, we have not seen the end of Yaya Shram. It's exclaimed.
It's exclaimed.
Aloud.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It's acclaimed. Yes.
And, that's the writers made that decision, so I'm going to believe them.
Yeah. No, we need more. I almost want the Yaya Shram just like comic run, like just his dedicated eponymous issue. But yeah, the Shroud. So like the Duskweavers are a fun new group. They essentially are like anti-technology.
Yeah, an anti-tech cult.
Anarchists who believe in nothing and want to destroy the Coaxium Ultra or something, right?
My girlfriend cut off her toe. No, Donnie, these men are cowards.
That
essentially happened.
It does. I mean, not to be now I feel like I'm being pedantic, but they're like, yeah, exactly. But they're also like they're Luddites, right?
Yes,
like they're the original, like actual, like philosophical version or the philosophical equivalent in Star Wars of the Luddites, right? People who are just like, technology will be the death of us. We need to do everything we can to destroy any technology. Which, I mean, they're not wrong.
Yeah. Like I thought that too when I was reading this. I'm like, oh, they're getting really good at making antagonists with ethoses that are tough to argue with.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like their methods are not great, but like I mean,
great face paint.
Being broadly anti-technology is a little strange in the Star Wars galaxy.
Yes,
given the only way they got to that planet was obviously a ship and just sort of technology that goes into transportation. It does feel like a little environmental sort of terrorist.
Totally.
Take out the fuel or
we'll blow
fuel is the enemy
up.
And like Coaxium Ultra is but just sort of big representation of like big oil that sort of stuff as well.
I also, quick side note, I was Googling, I was Wikipediaing around trying to figure this out. This is 10 years before Phantom Menace in case we're trying to like tag it in terms of timeline. 10 years. So I knew it was before, but I didn't know it's almost exactly a decade. But the other thing I was going to say is I think Mark Bernardin did a good job of explaining why like Coaxium Ultra is something worth, like the Jedi worth going after, right? Like it's just like instead of just saying, oh, it's just whatever, but just explaining in like a couple of panels was like, yes, if like the Hutts or someone else got a hold of this, they could outrun everyone, and then it would be anarchy, right? Yeah. Like I just love that little speech, which I'm like, oh yeah, this actually matters. Yeah. If someone's just slightly faster than everyone else in space,
which is such like a
that means
late
disaster.
Stage capitalist principle, but like and just like thrown into the mix, and like that made it really interesting to me.
Sure. Yeah. No. It's a lot of fun stuff. Just sort of parallels and interesting sort of political conversations to have around the Duskweavers. But what's the most compelling idea presented in these comics actually comes from the Shroud character, which is a character who essentially it's hinted that he had Jedi training.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
left the Jedi, dabbled in the dark as well, possibly Sith teaching, holocrons, maybe whatever learnings he found there, but then decided that there is no light, there is no dark, there is just power.
Yeah.
Just power.
And then he decided that he was him. He was like, I'm the guy. I'm the power.
Yeah, and he's like, I actually deserve the Force and deserve this.
I deserve all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. And
very Darth Bane-esque.
Very, and I love the idea that he's just like, these followers are followers because people need to follow and leaders need to lead, but I don't really care about either of those things. They're just a means to an end.
He's a true nihilist.
It's great. Yeah, very much so, yeah. And I mean, he's not wrong about the power. Like he literally like gets to the point where he just straight up like lifts, not even like force lifting, like actively just lifts the starship over his head.
Yeah,
like
that
Star
was wild.
Killer level.
That was truly wild when he did that. And then, but like it's so sad that he immediately gets taken. Well, I guess not taken out, but Azita Cruz jumps in. Mace Windu's Phase 1, Mark 1, I guess, Jedi Starfighter flies up into the sky, comes down, just raining laser balls. By the way, shout out to Mace Windu's droid, who might be the coolest looking astromech I've ever seen. RT.
Yeah, he has a real light lift. It looks like working with Windu, but he's always there in a pinch. Real light lift for that droid.
Shout out to that astromech. But anyways, he comes raining down, destroys the ship that the Shroud is lifting with the Force, and he supposedly gets crushed under rubble, but then his hand sort of protrudes at the end to show that he's still out there, which is so cool because, again, this is a character with sort of force training of both schools of thought and has now sort of is dictating his own sort of existence as a force user. And it's just very cool.
Oh, yeah.
It's just super cool because it feels a little unrestricted, a little like unleashed of like, whoa, what is it? What is it to explore the force outside the Jedi,
outside of both doctrines?
Yeah, I have a feeling the Acolyte's going to do this too. Sort of explore power as a whole and not just light and dark and maybe just the sort of thought pollution of the light and dark when it is there is an idea of just the force being sort of non-biased.
Oddly, this is the like gray Jedi like fever dream or a wet dream, really.
It's so funny
like,
because
that they're just like, yeah, if you use both, you're twice as powerful. And it's like,
it is that sort of power flex feel.
Yeah.
Power
That's the
creep.
thing is like I think it's super interesting. It makes sense that people would explore that path, right? But I don't want it to be like, and this is the answer to everything that solves everything, right? Like it's just to me is less like it's just you can tell that story. Yeah. Go for it.
I don't
Grant.
know what the end to the means here is though. Like I don't really understand, and I talked to Ben about this before we went live today, which is I don't really understand the deconstruction or the injection of moral ambiguity into Star Wars and where that leads essentially, because I keep going back to those initial interviews with Alec Guinness surrounding A New Hope, which in 70s cinema there was a lot of gritty crime films at the time, and Alec Guinness has this wonderful interview on a British talk show where he goes, what's truly brilliant is what George has managed to achieve with Star Wars is he was delineated between the good and the bad characters, and you know who's good and you know who's bad, and I think that's quite refreshing in a time when there's all these crime movies and morally ambiguous detective characters and there's just a lot of muddying of sort of the moral highways of the story. And what's so brilliant about Star Wars is you're actually able to leave feeling uplifted because it was clear who was good and who was bad.
Good triumphs over evil. Yeah.
And I think that is now being sort of cannibalized and slowly fading from Star Wars in favor of a postmodern deconstruction of sort of the light and dark and really assessing it as power and self-interest and things like that. And I don't know. I almost side with Alec Guinness in terms of what the Star Wars space fantasy fairy tale is and the power of it and how it allows you to feel uplifted and how that can go away very easily if we sort of muddy this thing.
Yeah, and I don't want it to go away either because that is the core of Star Wars, but you have to like if you're just going to tell that same fairy tale over and over and over again, good over evil, good over evil, good over evil, that's not going to sustain. It's just not. It's going to get old quick. And what I think I don't mind this dabbling into the exploration of these things as long as, because you can do that over long form storytelling if the end result is no, but the good triumphs, right? Like the story to me is like, you can be a gray Jedi, but you know what? You can't ever get back to white. Once you've dabbled in the dark, you are tainted. You can get there as close as you want. You can redeem yourself, but like it is not this thing. And I feel like I'm just so glad we haven't seen that in something like Obi-Wan. Like Obi-Wan, for its faults for the series, is like he is going through a deep depression as a character, which is understandable, but he's never dark side in that series, right? Like he's never questioning the light. He's just questioning whether he's good enough or not, right? Or whether he does it. But like
he's like, oh, am I not being good enough? I should be better.
Yeah,
like it's the other direction. Yeah.
And like even in the sequel trilogy, you get to the point of just like, it gets a little bit of that, but like it is at the end of the day, light triumphs over dark in that whole series.
I would argue that. Present that I think a lot of the live action series have been good over evil focused. The only one I'm tripping up on is Mandalorian. And I would.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
I don't know. I think actually Mandalorian's pretty. Like I'm trying to think.
Mandalorian
feels
pretty
self-serving. It's like kind of a selfish.
I would say
seeing light and dark. Yeah,
I would say too, because all of season 3 kept messing with me because I kept thinking like they were going to start telling darker stories, like with what's her name, the Armorer, right? Like I thought the entire thing in season 3 was going to be Armorer was actually a bad guy or like a Death Watch, but no, they're just good.
Yeah,
they're just all good.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, we want to reclaim our home,
which is refreshing.
Yeah.
like Yeah.
For warriors, obviously.
And like even Andor, where we talked about them dabbling with the grittiness and the darkness. No, Andor's good. Like all of the rebels are good at the end of the day. They they're struggling with stuff, but they are righteous characters.
And they're willing to fight for that goodness in all those cases, which is like that's why the Jedi doctrine's a little weird. It's like, well, we defend, we don't really fight until they did fight in the Clone Wars, but like, it's like, all right, so where do you draw that line? Because like in the High Republic, they should be fighting, like fighting to win.
Brings me back to one of my favorite lines in the Mace Windu is when Mace Windu shows Azita Cruz his lightsaber. He's like, "See, this isn't a sword; it's a shield."
Loved that line.
Like I love that line.
So
like I love that, and I feel like I will always, for all the faults of the sequel trilogy, it's one of my favorite things is that, like, you know what, the use of a lightsaber, other than to turn it on for a old woman in the desert. But before that, ignore that.
Yeah.
But like the last use, I forgot that happened. The last use of a lightsaber.
It's to throw it away. It's to throw it over your shoulder.
The last use of a lightsaber is in complete use. It's used completely for defense. Right? Like that's one of my favorite things in that movie is it's like that's what triumphs over the dark side in all 9 sequel trilogies is just using it as a weapon of defense.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Luke ever picked up a lightsaber.
Yeah.
Like
agreed.
Yeah.
Because he already threw it away in Return of the Jedi. It felt like a very definitive moment.
Would have been another amazing thing. But can we talk about Azita Cruz a little bit too? We haven't really hit on her.
I love Azita Cruz.
Yeah,
She's
I want to
so
do that
fun
as
as a character.
It does another
She's
character.
like, I just make a ton of money and then I just lay low and disappear.
Yes.
And I was like, that is what like when that Outlaws game comes out, I'm just gonna try to make a ton of credits and then just go do side quests and just lay low because I feel
same.
Like that is the smuggler fantasy.
I love it, but a very Lando-like character who just wants to pretend that she's not a morally good person, right? And then keeps getting sucked in to the point where she's just like, I love it. I think it's like the last issue where, I mean, before that, she's had a conversation with Mace about killing the slugs or killing what are they? I can't remember those worms were boar worms. Yeah. And he has this whole explanation of why killing, they're just animals and killing is not really what we do unless we have to. And at the end, like she walks out, she has an opportunity to kill one of the bad guys, and she walks out and she goes, "Oh, you didn't kill her?" He's like, "I'm not a killer."
Yeah.
Like she's never said she was a
she's
killer.
Great.
Like she's a good character, good original character, super interesting. Yeah. Oh, we get more of her.
Serendipitous that she sort of ends up with Mace Windu, and it's so funny when I guess they're getting pulled over by those patrol craft, or they're being attacked by the patrol craft, and he's like, just give me the comms and like you just side with me for this moment. And he's like, this is Mace Windu, of the Jedi Order, like ceasefire immediately.
I love that moment. Yeah.
Craft. And they immediately cease fire and turn around. And I was like, this is so cool. It's so cool to see the Jedi exercise their jurisdiction.
Yeah, that never happens.
Like
I've never seen that before.
I was reading that going like, I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. They're still going to fire. And then they start turning around and then the double rug pull of it immediately and blowed up by Yaya Shram. It's like amazing. I'm just like, but I love that moment.
I just like Babu Frick. Like I just heard Yaya.
I know. I need a Babu and Yaya story, but
Yaya is evil Babu. If that doesn't sell you on reading this miniseries, I have just no idea what to tell you.
I want to say Azita has one of my favorite lines where she's talking to the acolytes or whatever we're calling these people, the people, and she goes, the Dust Weavers just have this diatribe when they're trying to figure out, and she just goes, "So your skulls are filled with pudding?"
Yes.
Then? Yeah. Like just like this idea. I love that. That's such a great line.
Throw me off a little bit. I was like, pudding of Star Wars confirmed. I was like,
let me check. Let me see if there's a page for pudding.
It didn't take me out too much, but I was just then Wikipediaing pudding for the next slide.
All right. So pudding has a pudding has a page on Wikipedia. Pudding was a type of sugary dessert. Overprocessed pudding considered glop by the chef Strago Tugs to be found at local trade depots. A more high-quality version of pudding was the Mombassan mudslide. It has sources. It appears
that's good, actually.
Is there a clue in that?
And Star Wars official Black put. Yeah. And in a short story.
Wow. We'll have to cheers some Star Wars pudding.
So pudding is...
Speaking of cheersing in the galaxy far, far away, we thought we would do a little ritual sort of sharing of our drinks and sort of cheersing at the start of each podcast. Ben, do you know the in-galaxy words
I
we're going to
do,
recite
and I've thought
from
about
now
this,
on?
and I was thinking maybe we should do it as an award for like the weirdest comment of the night. We should then toast to the weirdest comment of the night and say this.
So it just happens abruptly
We're
at
still
any
workshopping
point
this,
in the
but like
podcast?
seeing that we are in a cantina, in a galaxy far, far away, we should cheers more, because we're usually not every night, but we're all usually enjoying an adult beverage.
One of us is at least is drinking. Yeah.
I love this idea because the audience, can kind of grab a drink and jump on the live stream, and then that can just out of nowhere we can kind of just hold up our glasses and
I bought this
you can
beer
join us,
because this
right,
looks like a
now.
super Verminoth. Summa
It totally does.
Verminoth.
That does like a super vermin.
Doesn't that look like a Summa Verminoth?
Okay.
So I was like, that's why I bought
Can
this
I give
beer.
you?
It's called Creatures
Can
of
I give
Magic.
you a quick note of So I was reading my daughter the Empire Strikes Back Little Golden Book. That's what she chose.
Nice.
And she goes, what's that? And it's like a space slug, or a Summa Vergoth, or a
Obi-Wan
or
taught you well.
yeah. Like I just named the three things, and my wife was sitting across the couch, and she just started bursting out laughing. She just like, because I like named the three things, and then we got to the bounty hunter, Exogorth, and then I named that, and then she's like, "What are those?" And I just like rattle off the names of the bounty hunters. My wife just laughing.
They're filled with
M
Minox.
is for Minox.
I
Some
did
have
say
entire-
Minox because this is just attacked by creatures. She goes, "What are those?" I said, "Those are Minox. They chew on the power cables sometimes."
I love them some power cables. Oh man, I hope it's filling her head with wonder.
I hope so.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Just letting her play with my Black Series characters as much as she wants. She's been walking around with her favorite one recently has been original concept Obi-Wan.
Oh,
concept
wow.
Obi-Wan,
Like
That's a cool.
concept art
like
Obi-Wan.
Toshiro Mifune concept.
No, it's like the Marvel 70s. It's actual like
Oh,
Ralph
the Macquarie
McQuarrie,
Obi-Wan. Oh wow. Okay, it looks like Lobot.
I got no reactions because my headphones were off, but
I like the realistic sort of balding
Yeah.
pattern.
I said he looks like Lobot.
Oh, totally. It also comes with the Vader concept art.
Oh, nice.
It was a 2-pack.
Super.
Yeah, the blue Vader, which I love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very
Right on. I had another quote from this thing too. I'm glad you talked about Cruz because she was awesome. But there was one. I don't know. There's a lot of like Mace Windu speaking in like metaphors and stuff in this. There's like a lake one early, but he talks about this one. He goes, "The secret to doing the impossible lies in not believing in the impossible, and knowing that doubt is what wakes you up when you're living the dream." And he's just like talking about, this is like his ethos to being a Jedi. And he goes on, it's like the dream of being able to stand when others fall, the dream of being a beacon in the night for those afraid of the dark, the dream of knowing the value and virtue of control in a galaxy of chaos. And if you can banish doubt, you can dream with your eyes open. I mean, it's just like, that's classic Mace, man. That's just like, it's great.
It's super heady. It's lines like that make me like, I'm like, I don't know how people write things. Like, like, do you know what I mean? Like, I could never between now and the rest of my life write anything as meaningful as that.
Right. And it's just
like, it's wild. It's so Jedi. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's his whole thing. It just like says Mace is the real deal, and he believes this, he bleeds this like Creed. Like he's full Jedi, man. He knows what it's up. It makes sense that he would be on a council 10 years later. But yeah, no, that was my fave. There's just been this amazing writing in this series, and in general, all these characters are rich and they're funny and dynamic. It was a really fun 4-issue run.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. One more thing. I meant to say that we didn't describe the what's his name? The shield? No, the sheath? No, the shroud.
The shroud, who's a Deveronian.
Yeah, he's a Deveronian, so he looks like essentially like a giant devil in a trench coat. And I just think that's kind of great that was the species they chose. I love that species. I think they're underutilized, where they just like, I don't know, like a devil, and they just like put it there. He like kind of looks like Hellboy, but like still has his horns. And
yes, totally.
yeah, and I don't know, fascinating character. No lightsaber for him.
It's like electro staff.
Yeah,
or something.
he had that electro staff that can fight off lightsabers. He's just like too punk rock to use lightsabers.
I just really love that. I love that Mark Bernardin sort of does the battle of philosophies during the sort of lightsaber electro staff exchange. Like this is all I ask for from Star Wars is sort of the wizened or I guess learned sort of characters who have life experience, sort of exchanging philosophies during sort of combat or during a sort of like telling, like there's character development with action essentially, and between the sort of the characters who have real takes on philosophy versus characters that are on a road to discovery, sort of doing that same action character development stuff. I think Mark Bernardin gets it, and I hope that we see more stories from him in the future, because that to me that's the sort of Star Wars that I think hits the hardest. And I love that the Shroud versus Mace Windu, like there was a real exchange of like belief, doubt, like the Force, light, dark, power. Like there was just so much going on there. I just feel like to me that's the sort of Star Wars that I think I yearn for the most, and I just really like that sort of stuff. So I'm glad that he was
there. That character,
totally. And I'm blown away with his ability to tell a story and introduce all these characters in 120 pages? No, 80 pages.
Yeah, I thought this was a 5-issue run. It was a 4.
Yeah, it's 4, and it didn't feel like rushed, and it felt like, but it moved at a pace. Like I'm really blown away with that. Like, I mean, great. I mean, Mark Bernardin is a well-established comic book writer. If you read, like, he wrote for Static Shock for DC. He wrote. He has his own Eisner Award-winning, I think, Aurora in the Darkness, which is amazing. So he's really great he writes a lot of TV and other stuff as well. But like, I was just blown away with just being able to do this much in 4 issues and not feel rushed and feel like every character got fully developed and fully fleshed out. Even Yaya Shram.
Yeah.
Shram.
I think he left a little meat.
There's more. There's more story for sure.
I'm hoping we get all of that meat, if you know what I mean.
Oh, I do.
A side note: I fell down the pudding section of Wikipedia. Apparently, there's a pudding called Goomba pudding in Star Wars. That's a canon thing. Just in case we were curious. Goomba pudding.
Okay,
just leave it at
that. Not going to make a comment about that.
What about bantha pudding? Is that something?
What's that?
How many kinds of pudding are there?
Well, there's Banarbon mist pudding, blue string pudding, bread pudding, crackling pudding.
I'll stop you when one sounds appetizing.
Denalian fizz pudding, energy pudding. That's from the Old Republic video game.
Wow, that's really gross.
Goopa pudding. Mimbanese mudslide. That might be where you got me.
You lost me at Mimbanese.
I mean, mudslide. I'm thinking like
I guess
ice cream flavor.
Oh, because
so that's
Mimban was the mud planet that we saw in Solo. Yeah, that's funny.
Octavian fruit pudding, Wasaka berry pudding, and white chocolate bread pudding. So maybe
I could party on some white chocolate bread pudding.
Sure.
Okay, I'd party with a couple of the last ones you mentioned, but there were some that you mentioned that I would.
I mean, I would also say you can say whatever you about the Mimbanese mudslide, but you can actually make that pudding, because that pudding is from the Black Spire Outpost cookbook.
Oh, that's cool.
Velvety smooth and rich in flavor, brown and white topping. All right, it does look pretty tasty.
I mean, if you're into pudding.
I mean, people aren't into pudding?
Yeah, I'd stay a good Wookiee's arm length away from most of these puddings.
Okay, but you guys are nuts.
Wow, we learned a lot tonight, I think, about us and our favorite puddings. Anything else you guys, what did we forget to talk about?
Do we what even is pudding?
Like, honest, yeah, it's like whipped sugar cream? I don't know.
Pudding's just not it for me. I don't know.
Egg?
Like, I don't know.
I don't here's the thing. I never do you know what I want?
I'm not thinking, hey, let's grab a lot of pudding.
Here's the thing. I'm never I'm never if someone's like,
not even he's not.
I'm never do you know what I want?
No one's into pudding.
No. Exactly. I'm never do you know what I want right now? Pudding. But if someone's like, do you want pudding? My answer would always be yes.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
All right.
I never think I independently want pudding, but if someone asks me, I do want
provided.
pudding.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pudding.
I guess
Once I took a beer, I stopped with the pudding. You know what I mean? Like I lost my taste for some of the heavy sweets I used to love.
Me never. I will.
Yeah, I remember
Happily,
that too.
yeah.
All right, anything more Star Wars related? Maybe I should be more specific that we wanted to talk about.
Try to end this show, Ben.
I'm not trying to end it. I'm just, if there's any more Star Wars things we want to talk about, I think that's good. Bread pudding.
Let's talk some more Dune. No, I'm kidding.
Last minute news. Let me check. Anything breaking?
Anything breaking?
Anything breaking? Welcome to our final segment. Anything breaking? New Acolyte posters. Don't look. Look.
I think it's safe. Less than a month out.
Too much Acolyte news. Closing. Oh, God.
All right. Okay.
All right. Never mind.
All right. Thanks very much for hanging with us at the Cantina tonight. Greatly appreciate the company. We'll talk to you next week on
Cantina Chronicles.